Hey there, second part of the introduction and the layout of the text. I got interrupted. I've got two dogs, and if somebody comes to the door, boy, you won't hear a thing. All right. I want to introduce you to three concepts that are used in the text. Identity, that's the one I'd started just as I got interrupted. Identity, vocation, and the kind of what like it's like a narrative structure, so they call it the dramatic condition. Okay, in the text it's called the dramatic condition, but it's really about the sort of the narrative or sort of the mythic workings or the cosmologies that you and I sort of live in. So on identity, as I was saying, just think of St. Patrick's Day at Loyola. Huge day, right? Halloween is another one. And both of these are really interesting, right? Because there's lots of companies that facilitate the way that people dress up on those days. That's very obvious with Halloween, of course, but it's equally obvious. I mean, who makes all this green outfits, right? And so why is it sort of a big day, right? Because Loyola students, we're a Jesuit Catholic institution, so St. Patrick is huge in Catholic circles, and we have a lot of Irish Americans, but it's obviously St. Patrick's has moved way beyond that, right? I mean, it's sort of an interesting holiday, right? Because you don't find it in England, for example, but that's of course because of the difficult history Ireland had with the English Empire, right, which dominated and brutalized Ireland in many ways. Right, I'm English, right, but we can't hide from the fact of what the English did, just as Americans can't hide from the fact of what white Americans did to Native Americans, right? So identity is sort of where you're at, right? So we can think about something like St. Patrick's, and I'll presume most of you participate in that evening. Even if you don't particularly feel that you're Irish, right? But it's got something to do with, I mean, far beyond college life, right? I mean, all the bars are full of adults of different ages that day. But obviously, for those who feel somewhat connected to Ireland, it's a very special day. But identity is huge because you might, obviously, there's sexual orientation, gender, identity. There's whether you feel that yourself like a kind of a geek, or bookish, introvert, extrovert, gamer, sports person, someone who likes to party, whatever, right? I mean, there's loads of different sort of identities, and interestingly, these kind of cross over, they overlap in super complicated ways. There's identities of class and origin, right? So you think about like the preppy. You occasionally see Loyola students in a kind of a preppy look. Sometimes companies play with this idea, right? Like the Lululemon Meet Me Courtside collection, right? Which had a very preppy tennis kind of summer thing going on, right? So, we have all this. And then, blue collar, white collar, etc. So the issue about transhumanism is that it's playing with that in a very profound sense. It's radicalizing it, it's revolutionizing it. It's, in the case of post-humanism, right? So there's a distinction in the text, and I'll talk about that in the next video, between post-humanism and transhumanism. But in post-humanism, the idea is that you and I might become kind of cyborgs, right? We might think about upgrading our biology to electrical mechanics. And so what does this all mean for identity, right? So that now brings us to the second thing, vocation. The Vatican argues there are three things absolutely basic to human agency and which you must get right. Right being a moral way of thinking. But they approach it in a really interesting way. The first is you must get your history correct, or the problem of time. Next, the problem of space, or the problem of geography or the problem of place. So, where are you? And then finally, your relationships with people, animals, the environment, the cosmos, and obviously in the Catholic register, right, with God. And so that's that section on what they call vocation. That's going to be where all the heavy lifting is done in the moral content. The identity issue that takes up the sort of the general problem and the intersection of business with identity, and then the second section on vocation deals with the the moral ideas. And then there is this thing, dramatic condition, and this is paragraphs. So the text is broken into paragraphs. So paragraphs 51 to 62, and I think you definitely want to reread. Like, read it, reread it, think about it. It's totally fascinating. I think this is the real heart of the text. Because what it's arguing is that you and I live in a new narrative structure created by the potency of technology, which now offers us a new mythology or a new cosmos. This idea of recreation, right? So this is a little bit like what the church is asking is whether this narrative or this mythology isn't really something like the re-encountering of the sort of ancient Greek mythology, right, with these incredibly powerful beings, and they're often somewhat conflicting. It's a very those paragraphs I think are really interesting, and to ask yourself how business is playing with this idea of a dramatic condition, right? So all business has a rhetoric, right? So okay, let's just go down it, right? The Bakuna idea is clearly a rhetoric, right? It's an oratory. It's a way of speaking about identity. The Megan movies, right? What's really important in the Megan movies is that, of course, the robot speaks. It's not just that, right? This becomes quite important in the kind of the plot of the film. The robot tracks and adapts itself to the speech of the child. So you'll see at one point, right, that the robot kind of imprints its like thumb into the palm of the child, right, and that then starts this kind of pairing phenomenon where the kind of speech of the child is completely understood, and especially in its emotional register by the robot. And there's part of the plot, there's a child psychologist involved, and the child psychologist is like, wait, I don't know, this might be going too far, it's a bit odd what's going on here, I don't know, this is healthy in human relations, right? And so that's that issue, right, about human relations. And then, of course, the three, in terms of the rhetoric, right, or the narrative structure, right, or this dramatic character that the church is talking about. It's very strong. Cuccinelli has a big story to tell. Land Rover has a big story to tell. Balstaff has a big story to tell. Right, these are all heritage brands, right? They date back quite far, and they want to tell those stories, right? They think these stories are very alluring, and it's absolutely the case, right, that people anchor their identity in these kinds of stories, right? I think we all do, right? And this might be a national story, right? I mean, some of you might be proud Americans, right? Because you're proud of the American story and belonging to that story. Could, of course, be that some of you, who are maybe more recent immigrants, like I'll be honest, I'll just do me, right? I mean, I've been in this country for nearly 40 years, but I'm not a citizen. I'm what they call a resident alien. I've always felt I mean, I've got 3 grown daughters who all live in America and all that, right? But I've always felt more English, British, right, than I have American. And I've had a great time here in America. And I live here and I'll surely retire here. And yeah, but nonetheless, people from elsewhere, right, sometimes hold those older identities tighter than even the newer identity. So these companies, the 3 that I suggest might be, and I put as a quotation mark, are they the antidote to the problem posed by the church? These 3 companies play with these identities that are rooted in a place. Right, so one's very Italian, the other 2 are very British. So a place, a time, they're all heritage brands. And then the relations, right? And that's where marketing comes in. That's where advertising comes in. Those of you who are planning on being in that PR field, yeah, this is absolutely basic, right? The way that companies position themselves. Now, some companies can't do this, right? Air conditioning companies, yeah, they don't have that kind of story to tell, right? But like Land Rover, yeah, it's definitely got a story to tell, and it's clearly coded, right? It's in America and in England. Land Rover is coded as an upper middle class car. It's not just that it's expensive, that demarcates that, right? It's got something to do with sort of upper class families, right? Now, of course, a single person could drive a Range Rover, but that's not often who you see driving them, right? You often see people of parent age with their kids, right? Because they're like a uber luxury SUV. And so they're very different, right, from a Ford, or think about one of those VW family vans, right, that kind of got that kind of hipster California surfing thing going on, right? I mean, that's not what the Land Rover is about at all. So anyway, just to say, this idea of narrative or discourse, or in the document, dramatic condition, is really important. Okay, so more videos coming, just 2 more, but hopefully this is all helping you get kind of oriented around the issues. Okay, thank you.